Chapter 1 Golden Cage. The first time I saw Lucien Vale, I thought he was a reflection. Too polished, too distant to be real. He stood on the mezzanine above the design floor, watching us through the glass like a god looking down at mortals. His suit caught the light, his cufflinks flashed silver, and the way he didn't move told you everything. He was the kind of man the world bent around. "Don't look," one of the other interns whispered, but I did, just once. And he was already looking back. He came down later that day, quiet as a shadow. I smelled him before I saw him. Cedar and something sharper, like rain on steel. When he stopped behind me, the air changed. "Who drew this?" His voice was low, smooth, and dangerous in the way silk can strangle. I turned too fast. I did, sir." He studied the sketch, not me. But his presence burned against my back, close enough that I could feel the warmth of his breath at my nape. "You have a good eye for form. What's your name?" he asked. "Ren." He repeated it like he was testing its weight. "Ren." Then softer. "Stay after work. I want to see more." That was the beginning of everything I wasn't ready for. At first, I thought it was mentorship, the kind that turned nobodies into names. Lucien Vale didn't take interest in interns. People said he didn't even notice them. But he noticed me. When the rest of the staff went home, he would stay behind, jacket off, sleeves rolled, leaning over my drafts. The city glowed outside the window, his reflection merging with mine in the glass. He'd correct a line, steady my wrist, his fingers brushing over my pulse as if by accident. "Careful, don't rush the curve. It ruins the body's flow." He'd murmur. I'd nod, trying to breathe normally, trying not to tremble. Sometimes, when our hands touched, he wouldn't move away. And when I did, his lips would curve. A half smile that said, "Don't pretend you didn't feel that." He started calling me my little muse. Never in front of anyone else. Only in the hush of that office, where everything felt suspended between danger and desire. "Why do you call me that?" I asked once. He looked up from his desk, eyes gleaming in the lamplight. "Because you remind me of everything this industry tries to kill: honesty, curiosity, light." I laughed nervously. "And you're the one saving me?" His mouth tilted. "No," he said, stepping closer. "I'm the one keeping you for myself." Before I could answer, his hand cupped my jaw, tilting my face upward. His thumb traced the edge of my lower lip, slow, deliberate. Then he leaned in and kissed me. It wasn't gentle. It wasn't even sweet. It was the kind of kiss that steals your balance, that tastes like warning and promise at once. I should have pulled away. Instead, I leaned in. When he finally let go, my breath came out broken. "Lucien," I whispered. He smiled, the kind that said I'd just given him something he could never give back. "You shouldn't say my name like that unless you mean it." "I do," I said before I could think. And he kissed me again. Slower this time, possessive, claiming. After that, everything changed. Days were ordinary. Nights belonged to him. He would call me upstairs under the pretense of reviewing designs. The first few times I believed it. Then I stopped pretending. He'd close the blinds, turn down the lights, and sit on the edge of his desk, watching me with that unreadable half-smile. "Come here," he'd say, voice a quiet order. I crossed the room, heart hammering so hard it hurt. His hand would find my wrist, thumb brushing the inside of it, tracing the beat there like he was learning it by heart. "Do you know what I see when I look at you, Ren?" "No," I'd whisper. "Potential," he'd say. Then, after a beat, "Mine." Sometimes, he'd kiss me right after, quick, fierce, like a secret he couldn't hold in. Sometimes it would linger until the sound of his breath against my ear felt like the only thing real. Every touch carried weight. Every word blurred the line between mentor and something far more dangerous. He never called me by name in meetings. To everyone else, I was just the intern. Invisible again. But in the shadows of his office, I was his. Once I asked him why. "Why can't you even look at me in public?" He was silent for a long time, then said quietly, "Because people ruin the things I care about." He said it like a confession, and I believed him. But when his hand slid to the back of my neck, When he whispered, "You work for me. Only me," it didn't sound like protection. It sounded like ownership. And I let him, because I was already too far gone, trapped between wanting him and wanting to matter. The secrecy became its own addiction. The hidden smiles. The stolen kisses in the elevator after midnight. The nights I'd sneak out with my tie undone, skin still burning where he'd touched me. Once, during a late review, someone knocked on the door while he still had his hand tangled in my hair. We froze. His breath ghosted against my ear. "Don't move. Let them think I'm alone," he whispered. Even after the footsteps faded, he didn't let go. When he finally did, he kissed me again. Softer this time, but laced with something that felt like possession. "See? They'll never know what's mine," he murmured. I should have been terrified. Instead, I felt chosen. The night of the showcase, everything cracked. My designs were finally on display, the product of months of exhaustion and faith. Lucien stood in the front row, flawless as ever, eyes cold behind the flash of cameras. When I caught his gaze, I expected some small acknowledgement, a nod, a look, anything. There was nothing. Later, when I approached him backstage, heart pounding, he didn't even let me finish my sentence. "You shouldn't speak to me here," he said. His tone was sharp, final, like a blade. I stood there, stupidly holding the sketchbook he'd given me, and watched him walk away. That night, I walked home in the rain, my coat sticking to my skin, the city lights blurring in the puddles. I told myself it didn't matter, that he was just being careful. But the truth pressed harder with every step. I'd become invisible again, even to the man who once couldn't stop touching me. I told myself this was love, that love was supposed to hurt, to hide, to stay quiet. But somewhere, deep down, I knew the truth. I wasn't his muse. I was his secret, and the cage I'd built around myself gleamed too beautifully to notice the lock. Lucien Vale held the key, and I had handed it to him willingly. Chapter 2: Presentation and Betrayal. The night everything changed started with too much noise. Backstage was chaos. Fabric whispering, models rushing, assistants shouting. I'd been awake for 40 hours, fueled by coffee and panic. My designs were walking under Vale Atelier's name. My name was nowhere. I told myself it didn't matter, that Lucien would make sure my future did. That morning, his hand had closed around my wrist. Elegant, firm, a warning disguised as care. "You'll stay out of sight tonight. Let the senior designers take the bow," he'd said. "But they didn't design it," I blurted. His eyes turned sharp, assessing. Then softer, the way they got when he wanted me to yield. "Do you want people asking why a beta intern spends his nights in my office?" The word beta landed like a boundary. I nodded, silent. He smiled, slow, coaxing. "Good." Then he drew me in, fingers sliding up my arm, thumb brushing the pulse at my throat. "You trust me, don't you?" he asked. I whispered yes because I always did. His mouth brushed mine, quick, claiming. "Then do as I say." He left before I could breathe again. When the show began, I hid behind the curtain. My designs glided under the lights like dreams wearing other people's names. Lucien stood at the front, his expression carved in charm for the cameras. For one dizzy moment, I felt proud. Then the world tilted. My chest tightened. My skin burned. A strange heat pooled in my stomach. The scent spilling from me was foreign, sweet and wild. A model passing by wrinkled her nose. "Whose?" I barely made it to the dressing room before my body folded in on itself. My first heat hit like a storm breaking bones. When I came to, Lucien was there. His jacket gone, sleeves rolled, the tension in his shoulders sharp enough to cut glass. "You should have told me," he said. The quiet in his voice was worse than shouting. "I didn't know, Lucien, I swear." "And Omega, do you have any idea what this means?" he muttered, pacing. It means you're a liability." The word sliced. Liability. Not lover. Not muse. He didn't leave. He hovered, calling assistants, locking doors, controlling the air itself. When I tried to sit up, He pressed a hand to my shoulder. Don't move. I'll handle it. That night he stayed in the room, scent heavy with tension, eyes never leaving me. When I stirred, he brushed damp hair from my forehead, whispering, "You're mine. No one will touch you now." His thumb traced my lower lip. The gesture looked gentle but felt like a seal. "Say you understand," he breathed. I did, because saying no wasn't safe anymore. By morning I was on leave for health reasons. By afternoon, he had moved me into a penthouse under his name. It was beautiful, a cage pretending to be sanctuary. He arrived unannounced, gifts in hand, kisses that silenced questions. "Don't worry about the atelier," he'd murmur against my temple. "You have me." If I flinched, he'd catch my chin, eyes cold. "I'm protecting you. Don't make me regret it." When I mentioned another brand's offer, he smiled without warmth. "You're not working for anyone else. You belong here." That word, belong, started to feel like a collar. Weeks blurred. My messages stopped reaching people. My design access vanished. He still called every night, voice low, possessive. "You didn't answer me today. I was sketching." "You don't need to work. You have everything you need." He meant safety. It sounded like ownership. I learned to hide pieces of myself. An unsent email here, a sketch tucked beneath floorboards. My reflection in the window looked paler each week. Once, during an argument, I said, "You ended my career." He laughed quietly, moving closer until his breath touched my ear. "I saved it. You'd be a scandal by now." "I didn't ask to be saved." "You didn't have to. You asked to be mine." He smiled. The way he said mine made my stomach twist. Half fear, half memory of the nights I'd thought that word was love. That was the night I stopped pretending. While he slept on the couch, confident I wouldn't leave, I stood by the window and watched the city breathe without me. Every promise he'd made, every kiss, every whispered "trust me," had been another thread binding me tighter. Love shouldn't sound like a lock clicking shut. I picked up my sketchbook, tore out the design for a suit woven with gold thread, light that refused to fade, and folded it until it fit in my palm. Someday, I thought, I'd walk out of this place wearing it, not as his creation, as my own. Chapter 3: The Breaking Point. Whispers move faster than truth. I should have known that. In the world Lucien lived in, nothing stayed secret forever. Not love, not ambition, not even shame. It started with a headline: Veil Heir Keeping a Mystery Omega Designer. Just a single line, buried under brighter gossip, but it burned through the fashion circuit like fire on silk. Someone backstage must have talked. By the time I found out, the story had already mutated. I was no longer an intern. I was a schemer. No longer a lover, but a threat. Lucien called me that morning. His voice was clipped, cold. "Don't go online. Don't read anything." "What happened?" I asked. "Someone leaked something stupid. I'll handle it." There was a pause. Then his voice softened just enough to hurt. "You trust me, don't you?" I said yes, because I always did. The next day, I went to the office since Lucien didn't came or answer my calls. The air was different, heavy, full of eyes that didn't meet mine. Conversations stopped when I passed. Someone's phone buzzed with a message, followed by a muffled laugh. On the glass doors, I caught my reflection and almost didn't recognize it. Pale, wary, already shrinking. Lucien was in the boardroom with his father when I arrived. The senior Mr. Vale, the kind of man whose presence pressed against your spine even when he didn't speak. Looked me over once and then through me, as if measuring the size of the scandal. "Out," he said to me, before Lucien could even stand. "Sir," I began. He turned to his son. "Handle this." Lucien's jaw tightened. He didn't meet my eyes. "Ran, give us a moment," he said, his tone rehearsed. I waited outside the glass, heart in my throat, watching shapes move behind frosted panels. Voices rose, sharp, male, controlled fury. Lucien's father pointed at something, probably my file, my name, my mistake. When the door opened again, Lucien looked 10 years older. "We need to talk," he said. He took me into his office, the same one where he first called me his muse. Now it felt like a courtroom. "There's going to be a statement," he said, staring at the skyline instead of me. "What kind of statement?" "That the rumors are false. And if people ask who I am, they won't. You're just an intern. It'll pass." My stomach dropped. "You're going to deny it?" He turned then, eyes flashing. "What choice do I have? You don't understand the stakes. Ren. My father. Your father." I cut him off, voice shaking. "What about me? My name is already out there. They're saying I seduced you for attention. Then stop feeding it. Keep your head down. Don't speak to anyone. I'll make this disappear." He snapped. Disappear. That word felt like a knife wrapped in velvet. Hours later, the statement hit the press. Lucien Vale, heir to the Vale Group, categorically denied all rumors of any inappropriate relationship with employees and condemned attempts at defamation by outside parties seeking attention. Outside parties. That was me. I called Lucien over and over. No answer. When he finally picked up, his voice was distant. "It's temporary. Lie low. Don't talk to the press. I'll fix it," he said. "Did you say those things about me?" Silence. Then, "It's complicated." It wasn't complicated. It was cowardice. Within a week, I was blacklisted. Other studios that had once asked for collaborations stopped replying. My name vanished from credit sheets. My inbox filled with rejection notices and half-hearted apologies. "We can't be associated with controversy." I moved out of the penthouse before anyone could ask whose it was. My rent at the old apartment was overdue, my savings small. I pawned the gold cufflinks Lucien once gave me, the ones engraved with his initials, and tried not to think about how he used to fasten them with my hand resting over his. At night, I'd sit in the quiet and replay everything. Every promise, every whispered plan for our future. I tried to find the moment it all began to rot, but it was like trying to find the first crack in glass after it shattered. Maybe it was the first time he told me to stay silent. Maybe it was when I obeyed. Somewhere in the mess of fear and humiliation, something colder began to take shape. Not hate, not yet, but clarity. Lucien wasn't coming to save me. Lucien was the reason I needed saving. The morning I decided to disappear was bright and cruelly calm. I packed only what I could carry. A few sketchbooks, my grandmother's sewing kit, a photo of my mother. On the counter sat a letter addressed to Lucien that I never sent. It said, "You told me once you wanted to protect what was yours. You never realized I was never yours to keep." I walked out with the sunrise bleeding across the city, the streets still half asleep. No cameras, no goodbyes, no noise. Just the soft hum of tires on asphalt and the echo of everything I was leaving behind. I didn't know I was pregnant yet. I only knew that something was still alive inside me. Fragile, unbroken. For the first time, I didn't feel small. I felt free even in ruin. Because when everything burns, you finally see what you were made of. And I was done being someone's secret. Chapter 4: Rise of the Omega. 6 years can turn a ghost into a legend. Sometimes I wonder if Lucien ever realized that the designer named Ronalden was the same boy he buried 6 years ago under lies and silence. Probably not. The world loves reinvention stories, and I gave them one. The mysterious Omega who appeared out of nowhere, reshaping luxury fashion with clean lines, subtle rebellion, and no past. They never asked where I came from. I never volunteered to tell them. People say time heals. It doesn't, it hardens. What heals is purpose. I built House Alden in a borrowed studio above a print shop, with nothing but secondhand equipment and a head full of sketches I used to hide under my mattress. I still remember the first fabric I bought, soft linen in bone white because it was all I could afford. I turned it into a dress that sold for just enough to pay next month's rent and buy food for two. That was the part that mattered most. Every morning, I'd sew while my son slept in his crib beside the window. He was born quiet. No fuss, no cries, just a steady gaze that reminded me too much of someone else. I didn't name him after Lucien. I named him Aiden, after the word for little fire, because that's what he was, the small, burning reason I kept moving when the world told me to stop. By the time Alden turned 3, we'd outgrown the studio. The press started calling me the Omega who redefined power dressing. I didn't mind the label, kept people guessing. They tried to map me onto old stereotypes, soft, submissive, emotional, and I gave them nothing but poise and precision. Every collection had a theme I never explained out loud, but I knew it by heart. The first, survival. The second, silence. The third, resurrection. Each show was a chapter of the same story, mine, rewritten in silk and thread. People often ask why I rarely give interviews. The truth is, I hate cameras. Not because I'm shy, but because I remember what it felt like to be looked at and not seen. So I let the work speak for me. And when they write about the mysterious Alden aesthetic, the clean symmetry, the controlled chaos hidden in tailoring, they're really writing about a man who learned that control is the only armor worth wearing. Behind closed doors, though, I'm just a father. Aiden is 6 now. He's all energy and curiosity, always asking questions that make me pause mid-stitch. "Papa, why do you always draw people with no faces?" he asked once, watching me sketch. I smiled. "Because I want them to imagine their own." He thought about that for a while, then nodded seriously, as if it made perfect sense. He doesn't know much about his father. I told him the truth in small, quiet pieces. That I loved someone once, and it didn't end well. That love can hurt and still teach you how to live better. He accepted it with a child's simplicity, the kind adults forget how to have. At night, when he sleeps, I still trace the line of his hair and feel something heavy lift inside me. For all that I lost, the world gave me him. That's enough. I still get invitations to galas, shows, charity balls. I decline most of them. When I do attend, I arrive alone, wearing my own designs, sharp, deliberate, untouchable. The same journalists who once called me the seducer now call me the enigma. Sometimes I catch whispers behind champagne glasses. "He's so poised for an Omega. No alpha ever claimed him? Maybe he doesn't need one." They're right about that last part. My assistant, Leona, handles most of the social noise. She's practical, brilliant, unafraid to speak where I don't have to. One afternoon, she came into my office with a tablet in hand and said, "The Board of Trade Summit wants you to present a keynote this year. Investment-focused big partnership deal. You'd be the keynote speaker for the Omega-owned business segment." I gave nothing away. "Accept it, we don't decline opportunities," I said after a pause. That night, after Aiden fell asleep, I sat in my office with the lights dimmed, the city glittering beyond the window. I opened an old folder I swore I'd deleted years ago, the one with my early sketches under Veil Atelier. My lines were softer then, more naive, drawn with hands that believed approval equaled love. At the bottom of the stack was a single page, yellowed and frayed, the golden suit I'd once sworn I'd wear for myself. The lines were still beautiful, but I didn't need the suit anymore. I had become the person who could have worn it. 6 years ago, I walked away with nothing but a name I couldn't use and a child no one must know about. Now the world calls that same name a brand, Alden, and pays thousands for what my hands create. Funny how respect always comes too late to matter. I tell myself I don't care if Lucien knows I exist again, that he's just another powerful man in a long list of them. But deep down, part of me wonders what I'll see when I face him. Fear, regret, or the same arrogance wrapped in new suits. It doesn't matter, because this time I won't be the one who breaks. This time I have someone to protect. Chapter 5: Alpha in Ruins. 6 years is a long time to disappear, but apparently it's just long enough for an empire to crumble. I didn't plan to see Lucien again. Honestly, I thought I'd built my life sturdy enough that our paths would never cross. But fate, or maybe irony, has a designer's eye for symmetry. When Leona told me Veil Holdings was looking for emergency capital, I didn't react right away. I simply asked, "How desperate?" She gave me a figure. It was staggering. "They're bleeding," she said. "No one wants to touch them after the last merger disaster. Even their partners in Zurich pulled out." I nodded once. "Set up a meeting." She blinked. "With them?" "Yes. Let's see what a fallen alpha looks like." The morning of the meeting, The air in my office was still and cold, scented faintly of cedar and thread oil. I went through my usual ritual. Check the fit of my jacket, align the silver pins on my cuffs, silence my phone except for one contact, Aiden's school. There was a kind of peace in the preparation. Everything had weight and symmetry. The man who once destroyed me would walk into this space soon, and I would not flinch. At 10 sharp, Leona entered. Mr. Vale is here. Send him in. When Lucien stepped through the glass doors, time didn't rewind. It just stopped. He looked the same and nothing like himself. The sharp edges were dulled, the polish cracked. The expensive suit couldn't hide the tension in his shoulders or the faint hollowness beneath his eyes. For a heartbeat, neither of us spoke. The last time he saw me, I was a scandal to erase. Now I sat behind the desk that bore my name in silver letters. Ren Alden, creative director and CEO. He didn't recognize me at first. I watched the confusion flicker, then the dawning shock. Ren? He breathed, as if saying the word could undo years. I let my voice stay calm. Mr. Vale, please have a seat. He hesitated, then sat, every movement measured, as though afraid I might vanish if he blinked too hard. I didn't realize House Alden was your company, he said finally. That's because you never looked beyond the surface, but we're not here to discuss history, are we? You wanted to talk investment. I answered. A faint wince crossed his face. Right? He opened a folder, hands steady but pale. Vale Holdings is restructuring. We need a strategic partner, someone with both capital and brand synergy. I leaned back. And you thought of me. You're one of the few who could afford it. I'm aware. The silence stretched, full of things unsaid. I could almost taste his discomfort, the bitterness of having to ask me for help. He tried to regain footing. Our assets are still strong. We only need liquidity. With your backing, we could save your legacy? You had one of those already, remember? You traded it for convenience. I cut in gently. His jaw tightened. Ren, I didn't come here to what? Apologize? Pretend none of it happened? Or just convince yourself you're still the man who makes the rules? I asked. For a moment his mask slipped, and I saw it, the guilt sharp as glass. He looked down. I know I wronged you. Wronged? I repeated, tasting the word. That's one way to describe what you did. The meeting should have ended there, but I wanted to see how far he'd bend before he broke. So I said, let's discuss terms. His head lifted, surprise flickering through the weariness. I'm not here to humiliate you, Lucien. This is business. But I don't work with people who lie, I said. I'm not lying, he said quickly. Then tell me the truth. Why is Vale Holdings really collapsing? He hesitated, then exhaled. Bad choices. Mine. That honesty, simple, unvarnished, hit harder than any excuse. For the first time, he looked smaller, human. Outside the window, rain began to fall against the glass. The sound filled the space between us. You've changed. You used to look at me like I was everything. Now you look through me, he said quietly. I learned perspective, I replied. He nodded slowly, absorbing the blow. You built all this on your own? With help, but yes, mostly on my own, I said. He looked around the office, the awards on the shelves, the sketches framed on the wall, and gave a short, humorless laugh. You surpassed us. No, I surpassed you, I said softly. Leona returned then, professional as ever. Mr. Alden, the finance team is ready with the acquisition proposal. Thank you, bring it in, I said. She placed the folder on the table between us. Lucien stared at it as if it were a verdict. When he opened it and read the headline, Preliminary Terms for the Purchase of Vale Holdings by House Alden Group, his eyes widened. You're not investing, you're buying us, he said. Correct. And if I refuse? You won't, you can't afford to, I answered. The rain outside thickened, drumming against the window. His shoulders sagged, pride and exhaustion pulling at him from both sides. Finally, he whispered, Why help me at all? I met his gaze. Because I can. And because watching you rebuild under my name will be more fun than watching you fall. When he left, I stayed by the window long after the door closed. The city blurred through the rain, silver and gray. I told myself I felt nothing, that this was just business. But my pulse betrayed me. Steady, deliberate, alive. Leona came back to collect the folders. He looked like he'd seen a ghost, she said with a faint smile. In a way, he did, I replied. She hesitated. Should I draft the press release? Not yet. Let him come back first. Do you think he will? I looked down at the city. My city now, not his, and said, he doesn't have a choice. That night, after Aiden was asleep, I found myself staring at an old photograph tucked between pages of a sketchbook. The golden dress, the early lines of ambition. For years I'd thought revenge would feel like triumph. Instead, it felt quiet, like the air before a storm. Lucien was no longer the man who could ruin me, but I wasn't sure yet if I could forgive him, or if forgiveness was even the point. The next step would decide that, because tomorrow he'd come back with his answer. And for the first time in 6 years, we'd finally be speaking the same language. Power. Chapter 6. The chase reversed. There's a particular kind of silence that follows confrontation. Not peace, not calm, but the hum of something unfinished. That's what I live with now. Ever since that meeting, Lucien has been persistent. Too persistent. At first, he hides behind business excuses, follow-up discussions, board clarifications, Alden's vision alignment. I let Leona handle every request. When she tells him my calendar is full, it isn't a lie. I am busy, but we both know that's not the reason. The truth is simpler. I don't want him in my space. He still tries. Invites come through private channels. Dinner meetings disguised as strategic discussions. One evening, Leona reads me the latest message with a raised eyebrow. Mr. Vale requests a personal meeting to clear the air. I take a slow sip of coffee. Decline it. She tilts her head. You're sure? He sounds desperate. I'm sure. Her smile is faint but approving. You've become good at this. I had an excellent teacher. I say dryly, turning back to my sketches. Pain. Weeks pass. His company stabilizes under Alden management. I see his name in financial reports, his quotes in business columns, the polite phrasing of a man trying to rebuild what he lost. But I also hear the quieter things. That he's stopped attending high society events, that he's dismissed his publicist, that he's seen walking into therapy offices with the same grim determination he used to reserve for hostile takeovers. I tell myself it doesn't matter. People change when they're cornered. That's not redemption. It's survival. Still, the persistence doesn't stop. It happens on a Wednesday. Leona and I are leaving the design studio after hours, and I spot him by the car. Rain-damp suit, no umbrella, eyes fixed on me. Ren, he says, voice low. Please. Leona freezes beside me, glancing for permission. I give her a small nod to wait inside. I walk forward, keeping my tone even. You shouldn't be here. I needed to talk to you. About what? You've already signed the company over. Not business about you, he says quietly. I almost laugh. There's nothing about me that concerns you anymore. His throat works as he swallows hard. That's not true. It is, and you know it. I answer. He follows me as I start toward the car, his voice rising slightly, more pleading than proud. I made mistakes. I was cowardly, yes, I remember. I finish for him. I didn't understand what I was losing. Lucien, this isn't closure. This is obsession. You're used to getting back everything you break. I'm not one of your acquisitions, I say, turning to face him. He flinches but doesn't argue. The rain starts to fall harder, soaking his hair. He looks smaller now, and for one fleeting second, I see the man beneath the ruin, exhausted, human. But pity is dangerous. So I open the car door and say, Go home, Mr. Vale. He doesn't move. Please, just tell me one thing. Was there ever a time you really loved me? I pause just long enough for the answer to sting. Yes, And that's exactly why I'll never let you close again. I say softly. Aiden notices my quiet nights. Papa, why are you sad? He asks one evening. I close my sketchbook and smile faintly. I'm not sad. Just remembering things I've already forgiven. He tilts his head, curious. Like what? Like people who hurt us. But forgiveness doesn't mean letting them back in. I say softly. He nods, satisfied, and goes back to his coloring. The simplicity of his trust steadies me in ways no power or success ever could. Still, sometimes, when the house is quiet and the city hums outside, I think of that day in the rain, the way Lucien looked when I told him no. There was no arrogance left. Only a man finally seeing the full cost of his pride. It doesn't change anything. But maybe, somewhere beneath the ruin, there's a man learning how to be human again. That's his journey now, not mine. Weeks later, Leona hands me a sealed envelope. From Vale Holdings, no signature, but you'll want to read it. She says, inside is a short note in familiar handwriting. I've started again. Not to win you back, but to become the man who won't hurt anyone else the way I hurt you. If redemption means losing you, I'll still take it. Asterisk. I fold the note once, neatly, and set it in my drawer. No response. No closure. Just silence, the kind I can finally live with. Chapter 7, Lucien's Redemption. I used to think people didn't really change. They just hid their flaws better. But lately, I've been forced to reconsider. Lucien Vale has stopped being loud. And that, more than anything, unsettles me. For 6 months after our confrontation, there's silence between us. I hear about him only through board reports or the business pages. Quiet mentions, a name stripped of scandal. The tabloids don't chase him anymore. They've lost interest. That's how I know something's shifted. Lucien always fed off attention. Now he avoids it. At first, I assume it's a phase, guilt dressed as humility. But the pattern holds. He begins divesting parts of Vale Holdings that were built on exploitation. The luxury subsidiary that used underpaid Omega labor overseas. The perfume line that used outdated pheromone-based marketing campaigns. He shuts them down, issues public apologies, funds independent Omega business initiatives instead. When I read the article, I catch myself staring at the headline for longer than I mean to. Vale Heir backs Omega entrepreneur grants. There's a quote beneath it. It's not charity. It's overdue responsibility. Lucien Vale. It doesn't sound like damage control. It sounds like understanding. Leona brings the topic up over lunch one afternoon. He's made a lot of changes. People are starting to notice. She says casually. I'm sure his PR team appreciates that. I reply too quickly. She arches a brow. You really think this is just PR? He's turned down 2 major profit deals because they violated the new Omega labor standards he's been pushing. Even the Omega Rights Council acknowledged him publicly. I glance up from my meal. They did. She nods. You didn't know? They're inviting him to the spring conference. I focus on cutting my food, but my appetite fades. I'm not interested in his public image. Maybe not, but he seems interested in doing something real, Ren. Whether you want to see it or not. She says gently. The first time I see him again after months is at that same conference. I didn't plan to attend, but Alden's brand sponsorship made it impossible to avoid. When I walk into the auditorium, I spot him immediately. Not because of the suit or the posture, but because he's no longer holding the center of the room. He's sitting off to the side, listening to a young Omega activist on stage speak about economic independence. His expression isn't distant or condescending. It's focused, present. Later, during the networking hour, he approaches me, careful, deliberate. No entourage, no press. Just him. Mr. Alden, he says quietly, stopping at a respectful distance. Mr. Vale, I answer, neutral. His smile is faint, almost self-conscious. You look well. So I've heard. He nods once, gaze steady. I won't keep you. I just wanted to say, thank you, for forcing me to face myself. That wasn't my intention, I say. It doesn't matter. It worked. He doesn't linger, doesn't ask for forgiveness, just nods and moves away, leaving me with more questions than I'm willing to admit. The following weeks bring more evidence of his transformation. A former employee of Veil Atelier, one of the assistants who was fired after the scandal, receives a letter of reinstatement and compensation, personally signed by Lucien. He starts a mentorship program for underprivileged Omega students in design and business, funding scholarships under an anonymous foundation. Of course, anonymity never lasts long. His name surfaces eventually, but he never comments. He begins attending industry panels, not as the star speaker, but as a listener. The press calls it the reformed alpha era. I call it finally learning silence. One afternoon, during a board meeting, I catch him doing something that stops me cold. A member from another company makes a dismissive comment about an Omega executive's leadership style. A subtle but ugly remark that everyone else pretends not to hear. Lucien doesn't ignore it. He turns to the man and says, calm and clear, "You might want to reconsider how you speak about people who've achieved more with less privilege than you ever had. That kind of thinking has no place at this table." The room goes silent. The man stammers an apology. Lucien doesn't gloat. He simply nods and returns to the agenda. I watch the scene unfold without a word, but something shifts inside me. Quiet, like a gear turning after years of rust. That night I can't sleep. I keep remembering his voice in that meeting, firm, not performative. The Lucien I once knew wouldn't have bothered defending anyone he couldn't use. Now, he doesn't even seem to notice who's watching. Change, I realize, isn't loud. It's in the choices you make when no one's applauding. 2 weeks later, a package arrives at my office. No sender listed. Inside is a simple white folder containing donation receipts, all to charities supporting single Omega parents. At the bottom of the stack is a handwritten note. Not penance, just balance. I read it twice, then close the folder. Leona notices my silence and asks, "Something wrong?" "No, just unexpected," I say. She studies me for a beat. "You're softening." I give her a look. "I'm observing." "Same thing," she mutters, smiling as she leaves. A few days later, I attend an Omega Empowerment Gala. I don't know why I go. Maybe curiosity, maybe closure. He's there, of course, standing near the back, no spotlight, quietly talking with one of the young designers Alden recently sponsored. When he notices me, he doesn't approach immediately. He waits until the conversation ends, then walks over, careful not to intrude. "Run," he says softly this time. "Not Mr. Alden, just Rin." I don't correct him. He hesitates. "I won't stay long. I just wanted to tell you something." "Go on." "My father passed away last month." The words land like glass breaking quietly. I blink, surprised. "I'm sorry." He nods. He never understood any of this, what I'm doing, what I'm trying to fix. But I'm not doing it for him anymore. For the first time in years, there's no defensiveness in his tone. Just quiet acceptance. I meet his gaze. "Then do it for yourself." "I am, and for everyone I failed along the way," he says. We stand there a moment, the noise of the gala fading around us. Then he offers a small, almost shy smile. "I won't bother you again. But I wanted you to know. I meant what I wrote." "About balance?" He nods. "About everything." Then he walks away before I can answer. That night, after Aiden falls asleep, I sit by the window and watch the city lights ripple against the dark glass. There's no anger left. Not really. Just a kind of tired peace. People don't become new overnight. They just start showing up differently until one day, you realize they're not pretending anymore. I don't know if I'll ever love Lucien again, but for the first time in 6 years, I believe he might finally deserve the chance to be loved by someone, even if it isn't me. And that, I think, is redemption. Chapter 8, The Turning Point. It happens on an ordinary morning, the kind of morning that fools you into thinking peace lasts. Aiden is halfway through his cereal, humming to himself, the sunlight warm against the kitchen tiles. I'm flipping through design drafts when my phone starts buzzing. Once, twice, then all at once. Messages flooding in like a breached dam. Leona calls first. "Don't check the news," she says, out of breath. My stomach tightens. "Leona, what?" "They found out." The silence stretches. "Aiden," I whisper. "I'm sorry, Rin." Someone leaked photos from last week's charity event. You were caught leaving with him. There's a headline. They're saying, she cuts herself off, but she doesn't need to finish. I already know. I hang up before I can hear the rest. Within an hour, the world knows that Ronalden, the untouchable, self-made Omega designer, has a child. And worse, the world is already trying to fit that revelation into a story. Some call me deceitful. Some call me a hypocrite. Others, the crueler ones, call me what they always called Omegas who dared to succeed alone. Someone's leftover. By afternoon, our home is surrounded. Not with kindness, but with cameras. Reporters crowd the gate, shouting questions about the child's father, my hidden affair, my secret life. Aiden clings to me when flashes go off through the windows. His voice trembles. Papa, why are they yelling? I crouch down, forcing calm into my tone. They're just noisy, sweetheart. They'll go away soon. But I don't believe it. Leona arrives within the hour, furious and efficient. We can move you to a hotel under an alias, just until this cools down. It won't cool down, not this time. I say quietly. She hesitates. Then what do you want to do? Before I can answer, another phone buzzes on the table. Not mine. Leona glances down at the caller ID, then at me. It's him, she says. Lucien. I don't pick up. Not yet. But I know he'll come. He always does when it's too late. By evening, the tabloids have spun their narrative. Ronalden's secret love child, mystery father identified? Below it, a side-by-side photo of Aiden and a younger Lucien. The resemblance is undeniable. I sit there, staring at it. The years I spent protecting my son's anonymity reduced to a headline. I can't even be angry anymore. I'm just tired. A knock interrupts my thoughts. Leona opens the door, whispering, "He's here." I don't ask how he got past security. Of course he did. Lucien steps inside quietly, no arrogance, no mask. Just a man who looks like he hasn't slept in days. "Ren," he says. My name sounds different on his tongue now, not a claim, but a plea. I stand, keeping my tone cool. "You're not supposed to be here." "I know. But I couldn't." He stops when he notices Aiden asleep on the couch, curled up under a blanket. His voice drops to a whisper. "He's grown so much. Don't make this about him." I say sharply. "It already is," he murmurs. There's a long pause. Outside, camera flashes flicker against the curtains. Lucien looks toward the noise, jaw tightening. "You shouldn't have to face this alone." "I've been facing it alone for 6 years," I remind him. He flinches but doesn't argue. Instead, he steps closer, lowering his voice. "Let me help, please." Across my arms. "Help me how? By denying it again? By pretending we never?" He cuts me off quietly but firmly. "No. This time, I'm not denying anything." The next morning, the press conference hits every network at once. I don't attend, I can't. But Leona insists we watch. Lucien stands before a wall of microphones, the Veil logo behind him. He's calm, steady, almost unrecognizable from the man who once hid behind wealth and pride. "I'm here to address recent reports concerning Ronalden," he begins. His voice carries no defensiveness, only conviction. 6 years ago, I made choices that hurt people, most of all him. When the world questioned him, I let him take the fall. That was cowardice, not love. The reporters murmur, cameras flashing. He continues unfazed. "Yes, the child in those photos is mine. Aiden is my son." The words hang heavy in the air. "But I ask that you leave him and his father out of this. They owe you nothing. The mistakes were mine alone." A question cuts through the noise. "Are you saying you and Mr. Alden are together again?" Lucien shakes his head. "No, I'm saying he doesn't need to be. My role now is to protect what I once destroyed, not to reclaim it." Then, unexpectedly, he removes the Veil family pin from his suit pocket, the one symbol of his inheritance, and sets it on the podium. "My father believed that reputation mattered more than integrity. I don't," he says, and with that he walks away. The video plays on loop across every channel. By afternoon, the public tone shifts. Not entirely, but enough. The mob loses some of its appetite. The headlines change from accusation to awe. A fallen alpha takes responsibility. Lucien Vale breaks silence, defends Omega partner and child. I watch the screen in silence, unsure what to feel. Relief, maybe, or confusion. Leona glances at me. He just burned every bridge he had. I didn't ask him to, I say softly. No, that's why it matters, she replies. That night, the house is quiet again. The cameras have started thinning out. Aiden sleeps soundly, unaware of the storm fading outside. I step onto the balcony, letting the cold air clear my head. Lucien is standing on the street below, alone, looking up, not moving, not calling out, just making sure the reporters are gone before he leaves. When he finally turns to go, I call out before I can stop myself. Lucien. He freezes, looks up. The streetlight catches on his tired eyes. Why did you do it? Ask. He smiles faintly. Because this time, I wanted to be the wall, not the storm. I don't answer. I just nod, barely perceptible, and retreat back inside. But when I close the balcony door, my chest feels lighter, like the air itself has shifted. Later, after Aiden's tucked in, I find a message on my phone. No signature, no grand apology. Just a few simple words. I can't change the past, but I can make sure it never hurts you again. And somehow, for the first time, I believe him. Chapter 9, Forgiveness. When someone falls from grace, the sound is never loud. It's quiet, like the slow cracking of something that was already breaking long before it hit the ground. That's how Lucien's confession sounded to me. A man finally telling the truth after years of lies. Not to win, not to defend, but to surrender. The press ran with it for days. Vale heir admits affair with House Alden's founder. Claims paternity. Takes full blame for past scandal. The world that once praised him as untouchable now called him tragic. And through it all, I stayed silent. Because what could I possibly say? He'd already said it all. It's been a week since that press conference. A week since Lucien Vale burned down the last of his pride on live television. The city has already moved on, but I haven't. Because every time I close my eyes, I still see the look on his face. Not the confident alpha I once knew, but a man who looked utterly, painfully human. When my assistant tells me Lucien is downstairs asking to see me, I hesitate for the first time in years. Not because I'm afraid, but because I'm not sure what forgiveness is supposed to look like when the person you're forgiving once destroyed everything you were. Still, I say, let him up. He walks in quietly. No entourage, no mask, no arrogance. Just a man who's clearly been stripped of everything but his truth. He looks thinner, paler. The sharp lines of power are gone from his face, replaced with exhaustion. Run, he says softly. Lucien. He stops a few steps away from my desk, as if unsure whether he's allowed to come closer. I wasn't sure you'd see me. I wasn't sure I would either. He nods once, accepting that. Then thank you. Even if this is the last time. The air feels heavier than it should. He's shaking barely, but I can see it in the way his hands grip each other, like he's holding himself together by force. I meant everything I said. He begins. Every word. The press, the world, they can think whatever they want. I didn't do it for them. Then who did you do it for? I ask quietly. He exhales, trembling. For you. And for him. I know who he means, but I make him say it. For who? For Aiden, for the years I wasn't there. For the nights you carried everything alone because I was too much of a coward to stand beside you. He says, voice cracking. I stay silent. He swallows hard. I don't expect forgiveness. I just needed you to know that I finally understand what I did. Not just to you, but to myself. I destroyed the only family I ever could have had. His voice falters, and for the first time in a long time, I see Lucien Vale cry. Not the angry kind, not the self-pitying kind, the quiet kind that hurts to watch. I thought power made me untouchable, but you walked away, and suddenly, I realized power means nothing when the person who gave it meaning isn't there anymore. He continues. He looks up at me then, eyes wet, raw. Ren, I'm begging you. Not for your company, not for your forgiveness, for a chance. A chance to be with you both again. As a father. As a man who's trying to be better. His voice cracks again. Please, let me try. For a moment, I can't breathe. This is the same man who once ordered me to stay hidden for his convenience. The one who accused me to save himself. The one who denied me when I needed him most. And yet, the one kneeling before me now isn't that man anymore. Lucien, stand up. I say softly. He shakes his head. Not until you answer me. I sigh, closing my eyes for a long moment. You don't need to do this. I do because I took everything from you once. I need you to know I'm willing to give everything back, even myself, if that's what it takes to be part of your life again. He insists. I open my eyes. And what if I say no? Then I'll still spend the rest of my life proving I deserved the chance you didn't give me, he whispers. The room falls silent again. Then, slowly, I stand and walk around the desk. When I stop in front of him, he looks up, startled. You know what's strange? I say quietly. I thought I'd waited years for this moment. For you to crawl back and say you were sorry. But now that you're here, I don't feel like I've won anything. Lucien blinks. Then what do you feel? Tired. Tired of carrying something that stopped being anger a long time ago. I admit. He nods slowly, lowering his gaze. If you want me to leave, Lucien. He freezes. I take a slow breath. You destroyed me once. Why should I trust you now? He looks up again, and this time his voice is steady. Quiet, but unwavering. Because I finally learned that power means nothing if I can't use it to keep you safe. Not cage you. The words hit deeper than anything he's ever said to me. I stare at him for a long time. His sincerity isn't loud. It's heavy, lived in, real. The kind that comes from years of breaking and rebuilding yourself. Finally, I whisper, stand up. He rises slowly, eyes never leaving mine. Do you love me, Lucien? He nods without hesitation. I always did. I just didn't know how. Then learn, but this time not by taking, by staying. I say. The door opens softly. Aiden peeks in, holding his sketchbook. Papa? Is it okay if I... He stops when he sees Lucien. Lucien stiffens. Hey, buddy. Aiden blinks. You're on TV a lot. Lucien gives a shaky smile. Yeah, I said some things about you. All true. Aiden looks up at me, questioning. I nod. Are you really my other father? He asks cautiously. Lucien kneels, voice trembling. Yes, if you'll let me be. Aiden stares at him for a moment, then quietly says, You made Papa cry once. Lucien's voice breaks. I know, and I'll spend the rest of my life making sure he never cries like that again. Aiden studies him, then glances at me. Can he stay for dinner? Lucien chokes out a laugh, wiping his eyes. Only if your papa says yes. I exhale, the last of my anger slipping out with it. He can stay. Aiden beams. Okay, I'll tell Leona to set another plate. He runs out before either of us can say more. Lucien stays frozen, disbelief written all over his face. You mean it? I nod slowly. One dinner, one step. We'll see what comes next. He swallows hard. Ren, thank you. I look at him, really look, and realize that maybe forgiveness doesn't erase the past. It just stops it from being the only story we tell. You don't need to thank me, just don't waste the chance. I say. He nods. I won't. As he stands there, eyes glistening, I think about all the versions of us that came before, the ruin, the silence, the years apart. And now, somehow, we're here again, not perfect, not fixed, but finally real. When we leave the office together, Aiden's laughter echoes down the hall. Lucien follows beside me quietly, like he's afraid the sound might vanish if he steps too loud. Ran, are we a family again? He says softly, as we near the elevator. I glance at him, then at the closed elevator doors reflected in the glass. 3 figures faintly mirrored back. Me, him, and the boy waiting down the hall. Not yet, I say. But maybe we're learning how to be one. He nods slowly. That's enough for me. And as the doors open, I realize it's enough for me too. Chapter 10, The True Heirs. 2 years pass. Not in a rush of headlines or drama. Just quietly, like the soft work of hands mending torn fabric. Forgiveness, I've learned, isn't a single moment. It's every small choice after it. Every time you decide to speak instead of staying silent, to reach instead of retreat. Lucien and I never made a grand announcement that we were back together. There were no staged photos or glossy magazine spreads. One day, people simply noticed that he was there, at Aiden's school events, at House Alden launches, sometimes just walking beside me, unguarded. And no one called it a scandal anymore. They called it history. Tonight, history walks the red carpet. The House Alden Times Veil collaboration has finally arrived. A collection titled Second Skin. It's our first public project together since the day I bought Veil Holdings and rebuilt it from ruin. Lucien is no longer the CEO. He didn't want to be. Instead, he works behind the scenes, part of the design council, part mentor, part partner. He's not trying to lead anymore. He's just trying to belong. And he does. The cameras flash outside the gallery, painting everything in quicksilver light. The hum of the press swells as we step out of the car. Aiden between us, his small hand gripping each of ours. He's 8 now, confident, curious, already sketching designs in his notebooks. He insisted on wearing one of his own creations tonight, a mini-tailored jacket with uneven stitching on purpose. Imperfection is human, he told me, quoting Leona like a tiny philosopher. Lucien adjusts Aiden's collar. You look perfect. I know, I'm an Alden Vale, Aiden says solemnly. I smile at that. Once, those names together would have sounded like an impossibility. Now they sound like legacy. We walk the carpet slowly. Flashes spark like tiny suns, questions flying from every direction. But the tone is different now. Respectful. Mr. Alden, Mr. Vale, is it true this collection symbolizes your reunion? Someone shouts. Lucien glances at me. I nod for him to answer. He smiles slightly. It's not about reunion, he says into the microphones. It's about growth. About what happens when two people stop fighting over who was right and start creating something right together. The reporters murmur, scribbling notes. Aiden squeezes his hand and whispers, You did good, Papa. Lucien's eyes soften. Learning from the best, he whispers back. Inside, the exhibition hums with quiet elegance. The clothes flow like living stories, minimalist Alden structures meeting Vale's signature romantic flair. Neutral silks and muted metallics that shimmer like emotion caught in fabric. Each label reads the same, House Alden and Vale. No hierarchy, no sub-brand, equal partners. The crowd moves reverently through the displays. Leona, radiant as ever, raises a glass from across the room and mouths, You did it. Lucien stands beside me, looking more at peace than I've ever seen him. You know, I used to think this world only had room for one of us, that we couldn't coexist. He says softly, and now, now I know I was wrong. When the final model steps off the runway, the lights dim, and a large screen behind us flickers to life. A video montage begins, moments from the collection's creation. Aiden sketching beside me, Lucien adjusting a prototype sleeve, me laughing genuinely, for the first time in what feels like years. The audience applauds. Some stand. Others just watch quietly, as if afraid to break the spell. And then the final frame appears, dedicated to those who rebuilt themselves, and to those who stood by while they did. The applause swells again, louder this time. Lucien turns to me, eyes shining. You added that. I did. For me. For us. I correct. After the show, we escape the noise and step onto the terrace overlooking the city. The air is cool, the skyline glittering below like it's breathing with us. Lucien leans against the railing. Remember when we thought this view meant power? I smile. Now it just means perspective. He laughs quietly. You always did have better words for things. Not always. Sometimes I just had more silence. I admit. He turns toward me, serious again. Run. Thank you. For what? For not giving up on me completely. You had every reason to. I look at him, the man who once shattered me, now standing beside me not as my rescuer or my ruler, but as my equal. I didn't forgive you to fix you, Lucien. I forgave you so I could breathe again. You did the fixing yourself. He smiles faintly. Maybe we both did. Aiden runs out onto the terrace, holding 2 flutes of sparkling cider. You guys are missing the toast. Lucien chuckles, taking one. What are we toasting to? Aiden raises his glass proudly. To us, the true heirs. I blink, surprised. The what? That's what Aunt Leona said. She said I'm the real heir, because I have both your names, and because we don't fight over who's better. We just make things together. Aiden explains. Lucien looks at me, a smile tugging at his mouth. The true heirs. I like that. We clink glasses, the sound small but bright. To the true heirs, I say softly. Aiden grins. To family. Later, when the crowd thins and the lights dim, we walk home together. No cameras, no whispers. Just the 3 of us under the calm city glow. Aiden skips ahead, humming. Lucien walks beside me, quiet, content. You know, he says, glancing sideways at me. I used to think redemption would feel like a spotlight, but it feels more like this quiet, simple. That's because it's not redemption. It's living, I say. He smiles. Then I want to keep doing it with you. You already are. At home, Aiden falls asleep on the couch before we even take off our shoes. I tuck him in, smoothing his hair back. Lucien watches from the doorway, the faintest smile on his face. I turn off the lights. The house settles into that gentle nighttime quiet, soft breaths, distant city sounds, peace that finally feels earned. Sometimes, I think back to the beginning, the ruin, the heartbreak, the pride that nearly cost us everything. And then I look at where we are now. Not perfect, not untouchable, but whole. The fallen alpha, the risen omega, and the child who turned their story into something worth keeping. Not revenge. Not tragedy. Just balance. As I close the door to Aiden's room, Lucien's voice drifts softly from the hallway. We're home, Ren. And this time I believe him.